Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we're a bit late, had a couple of late technical issues. My name is Michael Adams. This is the final webinar in our HLRV series. As we start, I'd like to once again acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. And of course, we acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So, as I said, this is our final HLRV webinar. Congratulations to all of you who have stuck with it so far. As you will have learned, people who have been at all three will know that we have looked at, had an overview of land history in New South Wales. We've looked at the old system records as well as Torrens title. Today we're going to put them all into context with a case study where we're going to look at as many records as we can in the HLRV. And what I really want to stress is that I hope we can have fun today with the land history, because I think it is a very fun area of research once you know how. So we've got a lot to get through today, so I'm going to jump straight into it. One thing I wanted to say at the start, I've taken a lot of the how-to out of the equation. Everything I talk about, you'll find in your guides from previous weeks, and there will also be a handout with this webinar. So the place we're going to look at today is at 18 Milroy Avenue, Kensington. And of course, we're going to start our search in the New South Wales Land Registry Services online portal. So first thing we're going to do is our prior title search. So of course, we're going to go down here, hit view. We're going to do our search. And then we get our prior title reference, which I'm now going to take to the HLRV. And here we are looking at our title certificate. So we can see that this is land in the County of Cumberland, the Parish of Alexandria, Municipality of Randwick, and it's land situated at Kensington. So this title certificate was drawn up on the 6th of September 1922, and the name of the person attached to this title certificate is Harold Horder. Now, if this name is familiar to you, I'm hoping it is, because he is, of course, one of our great rugby league legends, and as fate has it, on the same day that this title certificate was drawn, the 6th of September 1922, Harold Horder scored 20 points in North Sydney's victory over Glebe to take out their second and final New South Wales Rugby League Premiership. So a nice bit of serendipity there and a big day for Harold Horder. I bring this up not to talk about rugby league, although I'll never miss an opportunity to do that, but more to show you the way you can use information you find in HLRV and apply it elsewhere. So in this case, I've gone to Trove, which, if anyone doesn't know, is the National Library of Australia's website containing a wealth of historical material. We don't have time to go into what is on Trove today, but there are other places to find that. And I've just put in, and I've just done a search and found some information. Now, we're not all lucky enough to have sporting legends living at our house in the past, but you can use Trove to find a lot of information, even if you just type the name of the person whose name is on the title certificate. You can even put your address in, and you never know what you're going to find. So there are a lot of applications for the information you can find on your title certificate. With this, we're going to keep going, and if we go down the page, we can look at the dealings. We can go over to the next page. We can see that Harold Horder sold the land in 1937 to Domenico Demento, a fruiterer in Kensington, and his wife Caterina. We could go back to Trove and see if we can find anything on the Dementos there. We could look at Ancestry, various other historical resources. What I want to do though today is to focus on the past and see what else we can find about this land. So let's go back to our first page of our title certificate and have a look at the information that it tells us about this piece of land. So we can see it's lot 19, section 12, in a plan deposited 5759. And if you look down here, we can see a little visual representation of that. Lot 19, Section 12. And this plan deposited is, of course, a deposited plan or a DP. I mentioned last week that some DPs are available in HLRV, and in fact, this one is. So once we have that number, we could take it to HLRV, do that same attribute search. So all we need to do is find DP number, plug it in there, and then we can have a look at our deposited plan. So as you can see, this is a 3-page document, which has a lot of really useful information on it. So I'm just going to zoom in and see what we can find. So firstly, we can see our lot represented here, lot 19 of section 12. And if we look at the title information, we get some really useful stuff. So we can see that this plan refers to sections 10, 11, 12, and 13 of Kensington Estate. So knowing the estate name is really useful information. I'm going to be showing you a really handy application of that information shortly, but let's just see what else we can find. So we can see here we've got a PA number, a primary application number. We've got that this is part of a 570-acre grant to Samuel Terry on the 27th of May, 1823. If we went back to our title certificate, we can see that same information replicated here. Samuel Terry, 27th of May, 1823. We then get some various title references. We get some volfols here. And if we go down and look at the map face itself, one thing to note about deposited plans and many other types of records you can find in the HLRV is that they are working documents. As information changes, they get annotated and amended right on the document itself. So we can see here there's nothing in relation to lot 19, but just behind it in lot 8, we can see this number here, 35. If we went down to the bottom here, we can see this table with some number references. Here we've got 35. You can see here it's lot 8, section 12, and we get this number, SP18330. This is actually a strata plan number, which tells us that at some point the nature of this lot has changed, and in fact, because it's only a single lot, and if you look at the area today, I think what's likely happened is that it has been converted to a duplex at some point in time. Down here, we've also got a date that gives us a nice starting point for this deposited plan. If we go back, I wanted to go back to this estate name. So you may already know the name of the estate from which your house came from. If you don't, a DP is one good way of getting that information. And I want to draw your attention to a subdivision plan sister record, a deposited plan sister record, which is a subdivision poster. So these were documents drawn up for land sales across New South Wales. They were done by real estate agents and were popular from about the mid-19th century through to the early to mid-20th century. And these are basically artistic representations of deposited plans, keeping in mind that these were drawn up to sell the land. And we have a huge collection of these deposited plans, which you can access from our catalogue. If you just do a search for the suburb name plus the word subdivisions, we can see here that it's got that same information here. If we look down here, we can see our lot 19, section 12, and we get some other really handy stuff. So we can see here Moore Park, we've got golf links, which is of course the Australian golf course. Down the bottom here, we've got Victoria Park Racecourse. Now, I never knew that such a place existed. From this subdivision poster, I was able to do a little research and find that it occupies land in modern-day Zetland. We've got some photos of it in the collection. Here is a horse called Ramadan winning the third in May 1935 by about 3 lengths. And that is just some really good colour information that we could get from taking our deposited plan, seeing if there was a matching subdivision poster, and looking at what information we could get from this document. And on top of the useful historical information you can get from them. They also make really good posters if you print it off and stick it up on your wall. With our new collection viewer, you can actually download a high resolution copy of this subdivision poster, which you could then print off and hang on your wall. So that is just a little aside to again show you another way that you can use the information you find on HLRV and apply it in other resources. But let's go back to our title document. So we've worked out that this is part of DP 5759. We've got the name and date information here. Let's see how far back we can go with this document. So we've got our current title here, 336143. Remember, on the left of your title certificate, you'll have a reference to the last certificate. In this case, we've got a vol of 2295221. So let's go in and have a look at this title document. And even before we open it up, you can see that there's something unusual here. This is a 20-page document. So let's open it up and see what that might tell us. So you can already see by these thumbnail tiles down the bottom here that there's something different about this one. So let's have a look at this map. So this is a huge area of land represented on the one title certificate. Can you imagine owning this much land in Kensington today? And if we go in, we could find our lot 19 here, and we can see this is one of many properties or lots existing in this deposited plan. If we keep going and have a look at the dealings, you'll remember that in most cases, dealings are represented with a stamp and some information added here. But when you're dealing with an area of land this big, that's not going to cut it. So you can see that they've started doing that here. But once they've gone on to the next page, they've listed it in table form. If we go in, we can see various lots and sections. We've got lot 24, section 12, lot 54, section 11, and so on. And if we look over here, we've got some new vol numbers. So we've got new title certificates that have been drawn from this massive piece of land. Anytime a lot's sold individually, there's a new vol created. And when we know, because our title certificate doesn't skip lengths, we've got 336143. Our last certificate is 229521. We know that somewhere on this document, we're going to have to find a reference to lot 19, section 12. I've done this work in advance to save you watching me fumble around. So I'm going to go down here, page 18, and we can see lot 19, section 12. We've got Harold Horder here. And over here, we've got our vol number, 336143. So that's great, but in this case, we didn't have to do that. We could get that vol number just by going to the online portal and plugging in our address. But what would happen if, say, we wanted to do a search for 20 Milroy Avenue, Kensington, so just next door to 18? If we went in and did our prior title search, we could see that this has a vol of 10.821.84, and therefore it wouldn't be possible to do that search in the HLRV. But think about this piece of land. Sorry, this huge title document with number 18 Milroy Avenue in here. There's going to be a very good chance that number 20 is included somewhere here as well. But of course, we can't look for 20 Milroy Avenue because that is not how the information recorded. It's recorded in lots and sections. Let's go back to our online portal, and we can see here, we've got a reference with some numbers here, including 5759, which of course goes back to our deposited plan number. Then we've got 20/12. In other words, lot 20, section 12 of DP 5759. We can now take that information and search for it in our title certificate. If you, for some reason, you can't find it via the online portal, you could also use Six Maps. So this is a website of the Spatial Services New South Wales. Really great mapping website that's free, anyone can use it. And you can do a search here. If we go in, I've searched for 20 Milroy Avenue. We can use this to add our lot labels. And we can see here in magenta, we've got 20, the lot. Here in green, we've got 12, the section, and our DP 5759. So we've been able to find our lot and section number, which we can then take back and look for it on this, in this table. And again, I've done this search in advance. So I know I need to get to page 13. If I scroll down the page, we can see lots 20 and 21 of section 12 being sold in 1916. And of course, over here, we get our vol-fol reference. We get 270589. If we went in and did that search, you can see those two lots, lots 20 and lot 21, being sold at the same time. If we go over the page, this title document takes us all the way through to the 1960s when lot 21 was sold separately, creating a new title certificate of 10604225, and lot 20, the one we are interested in, being given a title certificate reference of 1082184. Now, we could then take that number to the Land Registry Services online portal and purchase the title certificate, but in many cases, this information that we could obtain for free will be enough. Remember, this takes us all the way through to 1968. So that's a fair bit of information that we could find just by tracing it back to an earlier title certificate. So that is just a little aside to show you some of the things you can do, and one of the best ways of getting around the obstacle of having a vol-fol number above 8497. So look for neighbouring or nearby land that has a vol-fol reference under 8497 and keep going backwards until you can find a common title certificate. Let's go back to our big document here. So if we have a look, this is a lovely handwritten document. A lot of information here. We don't need to scroll all the way and read all this. This is just giving us, it's in written format, all the different lots and sections being sold here. We've got a date down here. It's quite faint, but it's drawn in 1912. And up the top, we've got a name, George Frederick Todman. Now, just getting that name tells us a little bit more than we knew before. If we go to our map and have a look at the area, we've got Milroy Avenue here, and just parallel behind it here is Todman Avenue. So just by seeing that name, it's told us a little bit more about our area and the development of it. But I was thinking anyone who owns this much land must have been a pretty serious bloke. So again, I went back to Trove and I found an obituary in 1924, which gave us some great information. It told us a bit about his role as the managing director of a tobacco company. If we go down, it says that his purchase of the Kensington estate constituted one of the largest land deals in Sydney for many years. So already that's telling us a bit more about the area and the history of it. If we go up the top, we can see that he died at his residence, Milroy. So already, just by looking at one obituary, we've found out a lot more about the area. And we could spend all day looking up George Frederick Todman. I'm sure we'd find a lot more, but that's just a taste to show you some of the ways you can use the information you find on HLRV. What are we going to do next? Well, we're going to try to see how far back we can go in Torrens title. So this document was drawn in 1912. We've got a prior title reference here, 213363. Todman's name's also attached to this one. We've got another map here. We're not going to spend too much time going into the details of everything recorded on this title document. We're just going to do the same thing and keep going backwards. So 1951, 55. We still have Todman's name attached to it, 1749-193. Okay, now we're getting a different name. We've got Australian Cities Investment Corporation. And if we look at our date, this was drawn up in 1907. And if we go back up, we can see another Volfol reference. So let's go back. Okay, my mistake here, I missed one in the length. So let's just pretend that we looked at that title certificate and now we're going back to the one before it. So 106811. Again, we've got the Australian Cities Investment Corporation. So I thought surely I'd be able to find out something about this company. So I did a simple Google search and found a number of documents, including this council conservation report, which mentions the first subdivision of the Kensington Estate in 1891. We've got Australian Cities Investment Corporation listed here. We've got a picture of some workmen working on the site. I found a reference in the Dictionary of Sydney, which tells us a bit more about the Kensington Estate, starting with the grant to Samuel Terry in 1823, going through to the Australian Cities Investment Corporation in 1891, some more information about its history as a tobacco company, which there's even more about it in another Randwick Council document I found. So you can do a lot just by getting these names. But if we look at this title certificate, we can see that there is no prior title. So we have reached the limits of what we can do in Torrens title. So where do we go from here? Well, that is where this application number comes in handy. This is, of course, our primary application number. So let us have a look at that. Primary application 8605. Again, same process of getting the number, finding primary application as an attribute, and putting the number in. And if we have a look, you can see that a lot has happened here. So we've got a 25-page document here in our primary application search book, and we've got a 1-page sketchbook. So let's make it easy on ourselves and start with our search sketch. So we can see not much here, but what is here is very handy. So we've got the name of that original grant. We've got a diagram here showing us that the primary application in question, 8605, takes up about half of that 570-acre grant. And what do we see here? The words Lachlan Mill. So again, what could we do with this? You could take it to Trove. I'm sure we'll find a lot there. I went back to the Dictionary of Sydney and found an article for Sydney flour mills before 1850. And I'm just going to look for Lachlan Mills, and we can see that Governor Macquarie encouraged the building of water mills. Samuel Terry obtained a grant with the condition that he'd build a mill on the edge of the Botany Swamp in what is now Kensington, which was for a time called the Lachlan Mills Estate. So that is some really useful information. If we took Samuel Terry and did a search for him, keep in mind that with our early grantees, there's a very good chance that you'll find their names recorded in a resource like the Australian Dictionary of Biography. And that's exactly what I did. I did a search for Samuel Terry, found out that he was a very interesting character, arrived in New South Wales when he was transported for stealing 400 pairs of stockings, managed to do very well for himself in the colony, so well that there was a lot of question marks as to how he got his money. So a lot of interesting history to delve into there, which we don't have time to do today. But just from that document, we've got a lot of really interesting information. For many people, that would be enough, but someone's gone to all the trouble of researching the history of this land in the old system, so we might as well reap the benefits of it. So this is our primary application search book. You can see here that this application was lodged by the Australian Cities Investment Corporation in 1892. If we jump ahead to the handwritten section, we can see it here starting with that grant to Samuel Terry. And once we get below here, we start to see those dealings. We start to see the history of this land being sold. So we've got some book number references here, W128, which we could then take to HLRV. Again, attribute search book and number, W128. And we can see it here. So we've got some information about what happened to part of this land, part of that 570 acres. Now this just keeps going and going. We don't have time to go into every dealing recorded here, but that's certainly something you could do with your piece of land if you had the time. I'm just going to jump ahead and look at this table that's listed here at the end. We can see the Australian Cities Investment Corporation listed here with a couple of book numbers of 949 469 and 950 469. So let's have a look at the last of those. And we can see here that we've got the Australian Cities Investment Corporation Limited here, and they are, of course, the people who lodged the primary application. So with this search book, with this primary application search book, we were able to go from the first dealings of this land in the old system all the way through to the 1890s when it was converted to Torrens title. And from there, as you've seen, we can keep looking at the history under Torrens title. So that's the really good thing about primary applications, is that you can piggyback off the work that other people have already done and save yourself all the hassle of going through and doing the search. Just as an example to show you how handy that can be, I'm going to go back and look for another dealing recorded here. So in this case, we've got book 7, number 509. So this is another dealing that occurred on this land. Besides getting this number from the primary application, you could use the vendors index in the old system, which Wendy talked about in our second webinar. So this is in the old system. It starts in 1825. So I know that there'd be an early sale that 7509 should be recorded in. And I know from the name on the primary application that it was to William Cooper. So with the vendors index, you use the first two initials of the surname. So I'm going to go in and do a search for that. Now I'm going to jump ahead just to show you how difficult this search can be and how much easier it is if you are able to obtain the book and number from the primary application. So this index is sorted by surname, but not surname and first name. So all the Coopers are listed together, but we see we've got Cooper Robert, then Cooper Francis, Cooper Arthur, and so on. After surname, they are sorted by book and number, meaning that for a common name like Cooper, you will have to wade through pages and pages of the index, looking at potentially a lot of irrelevant book and number references before finding the right one. In this case, from the primary application, I knew that it is book 7, number 509. So that is easy enough to find. But once we get there, we've got no information about the land in question, nothing to tell us that this is the right title deed. If we went in and had a look at it, we can see that it is. Even then, that's going to take some hard work. So we have to go to page 23 of this table until we can find it recorded here. So we've got the 570 acres here and all the information about the land there. So there's a lot of work involved in doing this. And that is why, if you can get it, using the primary application is a lot simpler. So just to finish up, let's try to go back to that original grant. Samuel Terry, 27th of May, 1823. So of course, to do that, we're going to use the grant index. And with the grant index, we just enter the first name, the first letter of the surname. And so I've found it here, T, we're looking for Terry. We're going to go ahead And I think it's on page 2. Okay, here we go. So we can see the 570 acres here. That's a good sign that this is the right one. But again, without knowing that acreage or knowing exactly where the land was, this could take some work. But in this case, we've got it. So book serial number 14, page 170. So again, once we've got the grant index, we go to the grant register, which you can, if you've got the serial and page number, you can just enter that as your attribute. Do our search. And here we get the original grant telling us that Samuel Terry was granted 570 acres with a number of conditions, including that he was to take 5 convicts off the government stores, that it was for the purposes of building a mill, and even that that mill was to be called Lachlan Mill. So that takes us all the way back. And as we get to the start, I just want you to reflect on all we've learned, all the places we've gone, all the things we've discovered, all off the back of this one-page document. So I hope this has helped to convey how much fun land research is and how once you know how it works, the HLRV is a really fantastic resource. So thank you all for joining us over the last 4 weeks.